Ow.
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
What up?
Not much.
Just
Chilling,
hanging out.
chilling. Yeah. What's up with you?
The same old, same old.
Same old, same old. Got a cat that's trying to kill a fly.
Got a cat that's trying to kill a fly. Got another cat who's being liquid.
That is how it is.
So, yes, that's just how it is.
For true. Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the seasonal anime Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Owl and Ladium.
Hello.
Wow, you can actually hear that this time. It's amazing.
Amazing.
Amazing, a meatball.
Amazing meatball.
Yes. Hello. We're going to talk about a anime film this week, continuing our trend of watching films that are based off of old stories.
Old fairy tales.
Old, yeah, that's the word I should use. Yeah, fairy tales,
Yeah.
popular fairy tales.
Popular fairy tales.
Yes. We're talking about Belle this week,
Uh-huh.
which is also inspired by the Beauty and the Beast.
Very obviously so.
Very obviously so.
Yep. Um, hey, you got to write about this once.
I did. We'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah.
Okay.
I did write about this before. But yeah, this is a film that came out last year in Japan. It premiered at the Cannes Film Festival a day before it was premiered in Japan, and then came out over in the United States on January 14th of this year, and in UK on February 4th. It is now also out on home video
Whoa.
on VHS,
Yep, definitely VHS. I mean, it is
on Laserdisc.
heavily inspired by Beauty and the Beast, which would
Yeah,
have
they
been
should
out
put
on
one of those
VHS.
like bubble cases with it.
Yeah, the clamshell case things.
Yes.
Yeah, those were great. I have like
Going
all of
soon
those at
into
my
the Disney
mom's.
Vault.
Oh my God.
It was the highest grossing Japanese film of 2021, with 6.53 billion yen in the box office as of December of 2021. It earned 1.6 million in its U.S. opening week, and a total of 1.8 million over the 4-day Martin Luther King Day holiday frame. So that's a pretty decent opening.
Yeah, especially for a film that's like, well, for like a better word, like Japanese.
Yeah, it only was in like 1,300 theaters,
Oh wow.
so pretty good. Also, I mean, this was still during COVID,
Yeah.
which is still a thing. So
I said COVID is not over, but
yes, got nominated for a bunch of awards. It won Outstanding Achievement in Music at the Japanese Academy Film Prize this past March, and also won Excellence Award Animated Theatrical Film category at the VFX Japan Awards, also in March. And was nominated for a bunch of other places that didn't win. For shame.
heck.
Heckity heck. It has a 95% on the Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty good.
Yeah, wow.
Critic like it. Let's talk about production for a little bit, because there's not a whole lot on the Wikipedia about it, but we can talk about it.
Okay.
Uh, while Studio Chizu worked on the project, they had help from veteran Disney animator and character design Jim Kim and Michael Camacho on the design of Belle and Studio Cartoon Saloon for the background work of The World of You.
It shows.
Yes. Mamoru Hosoda, who's the director, initially intended for Belle to be a musical, but considered the idea difficult due to Japan not having a culture of making musicals. However, he still wanted music to be essential to the film, so he searched for a protagonist that could sing. He stated that he preferred the same person doing both speaking and singing voices to make it convincing, and searched for a singer who could express their feelings through song and move people, even if they don't understand Japanese. He then found Kaho Nakamura, who's the voice actress for Suzu and Belle, whom he considered relatively unknown, but a perfect choice for the role. Hosoda stated that Nakamura was also involved in writing lyrics, so she could feel the lyrics she was singing.
Singing.
And yeah, you mentioned that I wrote about this. I got to interview the composers of this film,
Cool.
which is pretty cool. I interviewed Taisei Iwasaki, Ludwig Forssell, and Yuta Bando about just creating the music, working with Hosoda, working on a film during COVID, what all did they come into, or how did they come up with like the the music and everything? What inspired them? How did they take this inspiration of Beauty and the Beast and use that, but also not just basically copy and paste it?
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of stuff like that. Um, this interview is divided into like 3 separate sections, with like 2 of them being for 2 specific people, and then the other is kind of a group interview with all 3 of them. First up, I interviewed Taisei Iwasaki, who was the director, composer, and producer of the music in the film. He talked about the final song in the film, the climax song, "A Million Miles Away," and basically how like he was able to take that song, considering it's a 9.5 minute song. It's very long.
Yeah.
He says he came up with the idea to divide the song into 4 parts, taking the fact into account that Suzu's emotion, the emotions of the U audience around her, and the emotions of her friends in the real world all changed throughout the song. Each part had to have its own color, but also had to be integrated into one big song, so it was difficult to connect them seamlessly. He composed the last 2 parts with the hope that the climax of the song would make not only everyone in the movie, but also the audience feel as if they are watching a live performance of Suzu Belle, and also sing the la 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 parts in their hearts, and then compose part 4 with the intention of blessing everyone watching the movie. Bless up. He also mentions that the song contains the hope that people who have been divided by COVID will feel like they can connect with each other in the world of you, which is an interesting point. I mentioned how I thought like the la la la's, because you hear them throughout most of the film as like a leitmotif,
right?
And he mentioned that that the idea of doing the humming and using it in another song was something that Hosoda came up with. He said he didn't think the humming was as a leitmotif though, which is interesting. He said after he'd fully composed the song, he told Kaho Nakamura, "I want you to sing this song as if you're writing it for the first time, preferably while walking to your favorite riverbank." She's also a composer, so she immediately understood my intention and gave it a try. And he said he wanted to make a scene of the moment when the song was born, so that's how he used like the humming. And then he based the humming came out, and like they were able to make animation out of the humming, essentially. Let's see what else. I also interviewed Ludwig Forzo, as I mentioned earlier. He did some of the other songs scattered throughout. Like he did the song that was based off of the dragon. When like they're trying to like find the identity of that person, there's like a song that plays throughout that when they're searching throughout the internet. And I talked to him about his thought process about making more like a digital sounding piece of music for this scene in particular that's a little bit different from everything else in the film. He mentioned that he thought that he may have completely disregarded the original direction he got for the scene, and that it was originally described to him as a briefing scene, meaning that he could have taken more of an espionage type of approach. However, instead, he started this piece with an idea in mind that he wanted the scene to feel like a montage, and he wanted a constant drive and for a simple idea of a melody to be present throughout, linking all the past and characters of the scene together, or parts of the characters of the scene together. The scene itself deals with how the internet and media, parts of our daily life that in a sense aren't real life, depicts individuals and draws conclusions about the motives behind their actions and the repercussions of this type of clickbait style of almost predatory make-believe that drives the online machine. His goal was to have the viewer get sucked into this wild goose chase, and that the girls dive into as they search the internet for answers that they'll later find out aren't as simple as they might have thought. The sense and digital sounds used in this piece were the glue to connect Suzu and Hiro in their real world to the world of the web. An intriguing way to go about that for a song that's just about the internet, kind of.
Yeah.
Also, there's the song that plays when when people find out about Suzu and what's his face, Shinobu, and like the girls all freak out, and she has to like fend them off, and there's like that board game thing.
Oh right.
And there's another like piece of music in that kind of feels very different from the rest of the soundtrack as well. And he mentions that through the scene, in a way, deals with social media bullying and tackles it in a very, I guess you could say, literal way, which is why Social Warfare is the title of the song, was most definitely different in many ways. He actually had something completely different in mind and had tried out a few things when he got the first round of the picture for the scene, and then quickly realized that Hosoda-san had in mind what he had said he wanted, something that sounded like a mobile game. At one point, he was unsure whether we'd be recording orchestra for this track because Hosoda-san was so in love with the idea of it sounding somewhat cheap. In the end, it was one of those pieces where the scene itself just called for something fun when I got to play around and be sort of silly. And then he also says, I even got to direct a distinguished choir of London voices to sing a few lines of Easter egg lyrics in Japanese. I also talked to him about the scene where Kei and Suzu first meet, which you can obviously kind of get into spoilers here. But like, it's when they meet first time through like the internet, and there's obviously like there's this distrust between the two of them. Like he doesn't trust her yet, and literally the song is called Distrust, so that makes sense.
Right.
He mentioned that was that piece of music was potentially like the first bit of music he wrote for the movie, and it was essentially in his wheelhouse, closer to something he basically experienced doing before. So for him, the ambient dark mood came rather naturally, and at the time of writing it, he honestly didn't overthink it too much. And then he says, however, it was only later when discussing the piece with Soda-san that I came to understand how important this non-musical approach was in depicting a scene dealing with such a serious subject as domestic violence and the state of mind of a child who's been let down by people he thought he could trust over and over again. I think that what I felt necessary for the scene was for it not to be a conversation, because it never is. Suzu reaches out to Kei, but at this point he has no reason to even listen to her, let alone trust her. The music is supposed to convey the anger, feelings of betrayal, and the turmoil inside of Kei. It's not telling a sweeping story, it's just giving you the picture. And then also I talked to him about like the final song that plays before the credits, which supports I think two different scenes. I forget which exactly two different scenes I'm talking about here, but he mentions that the two parts of Skies of Song, which is the song we're talking about, are actually written completely separate, with the first part actually only being added during the film's final mix. Though it does start right after the final conflict of the film, the idea is that we have already landed safely, and so the first part lets us build on this newly found confidence and feelings of happiness belonging into the natural conclusion of Suzu's personal and emotional development. Hosoda-san's film all end with a shot of a cloud as a symbol of personal growth, and for me it was one of the most rewarding parts of the film to be able to work on. To have the film's title screen with the leitmotif from Gales of Song and end with it fully grown up really encompasses the growth that Suzu goes through throughout the story of the film. In a way, this motif signals both how Suzu is able to recognize or realize her own potential as Belle, but also she has always had that strength within herself, that her alter ego isn't a mask to hide behind, but rather the cocoon that lets her blossom on her own. This track is supposed to symbolize the warm feeling of relief and peace of mind at the end of a journey where we have ended up better versions of ourselves. And then this is the group portion of the interview. One of the things obviously I wanted to talk about was like, they made this film during COVID, specifically like, obviously the harder parts of the pandemic were definitely occurring during this time.
Right.
Iwasaki had to say that it was difficult to meet many people directly through COVID-19, and this time I was in the position of organizing several composers, so I felt a lot of pressure at first. But since the four composers who participated this time, Ludwig Forso, Yuta Bando, Daiki Tsuneta, and Miho Hazama, were originally friends, I was able to make many contacts with them. The actual collaboration was not so difficult. Another important factor was that they were able to have quality online meetings due to the development of technology. In fact, it was COVID-19 that gave me the idea to gather more than 3,000 la-la-las from all over the world for a million miles away. I think this was a good thing for the project. Forcell said, "We've all had our lives turned upside down by the pandemic. I know many friends who have had to rethink their entire approach to writing music and recording it over the last 2 years. However, my personal experience wasn't only negative. Actually, thanks to the changed condition, I was able to finally set up a new place to work out of my home, and as I left my previous employer halfway through working on Belle, this really helped me a lot." And then Bando said, "In terms of COVID, this was my first experience with meetings being held online, of course. Of course, I think the film was doing the same. Also, when recording the orchestra portions with its ensemble Fove, or Fove, F-O-V-E, it was a new experience as we had to take measures against COVID that I had never experienced before. In terms of the compositions, it was my first opportunity working with Taisei Iwasaki and Ludwig Forstill, so I faced the challenge of having to demonstrate my artistry while also collaborating musically. As a result, I think that each of us were able to make music in a good way." And then I asked him about, obviously, the homages to Beauty and the Beast, because that's obviously a big thing throughout the story. Iwasaki said, "What I was most conscious about was composing music that was truly necessary for the film. I thought if the music was truly good and not influenced by the times, it would naturally become sustainable music. As for Beauty and the Beast, I tried to be as unaware of it as possible and never mentioned the live-action film, the animation, or the original story. They're all wonderful, so I did not want to be too influenced by them musically." Forcell said, "If anything, I find it better to completely disregard any previous renditions, especially of something like Beauty and the Beast. People tend to forget that the Disney film isn't the first or only version of the story, so I'd like to think of the parts that reference that classic fairy tale as our version of it." And then Bando said, "In terms of the music, I was not trying to give too much of an homage to Beauty and the Beast. Both Studio Chizo's animation and director Hosoda himself created a very delicate and spectacular story that I was able to add music to naturally."
That's interesting that they were all like, no, we were ignoring Beauty and the Beast,
Yeah.
basically.
I mean, that's kind of probably what you'd have to do.
No, it makes sense because otherwise you would like subconsciously be throwing stuff in from the other versions, and that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to make
Mm-hmm.
your own version.
Yeah. I asked them about how like there's parts of the music, specifically how it's integrated into the film itself. There's a lot of like subtlety to it,
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of just like soft pieces that play in the background that like you may not notice unless you're like really trying to hear for it. And essentially, it was like, was this like a creative decision that they implemented, or was it just like something that kind of occurred? Iwasaki said that the score for this film was composed by several people, and I think they all understood the story well and composed songs that fit the scenes. A score should not be a good piece of music on its own. The most important thing for the film is that it works well in the scene, so we had a lot of discussions about what we were composing. Forcell said, "As someone who definitely wrote a few of the less flamboyant parts of the score, I'd say that with something dynamic and colorful as a film like Belle, you definitely need the quieter bits so that the bigger parts get to stand out more. It's easy to overdo it when you're trying to convey so many things, and you also have songs being performed throughout. So while giving room for the extravagant parts while tying everything together, I think this was the right decision for this film." And then Bando said, "As far as I can remember, the word subtlety was not exactly an order from director Hosoda. Perhaps it was an inevitable consequence of the animation as far as this film is concerned. While we had very detailed on the score, I think the music was certainly born out of a response to the performances in the film." And then one of the things also I like the last things I talked about to them was the idea, virtual singers being the thing. Was it more, did they try and like look at the current state of like pop music and use that for Belle, or was it just like, let's try and make something else entirely, let's make it more the symphonic thing that we see throughout most of the film?
Mm-hmm.
Iwasaki said, "Of course, some of the songs were composed with the current pop music in mind, but overall, I was more conscious of the fact that I wanted to compose songs that would not be affected by the times and that would last for a long time." And then Forcell said, "I have hours and hours of text messages between me and Iwasaki-san discussing the approach of the songs of Belle from the months leading up to actually writing anything for the film. We talked about basically any and all films that we could think of that feature actual pop artists in their music. If anything, I don't think we even discussed typical musicals at all beyond confirming that that was not what Belle should be. I will say that this is a very fine line to walk. Pop music doesn't become popular only because of how it sounds. There are so many unquantifiable aspects such as the artist, social trends, mere chance, etc. And as for the musical approach, the music still needs to represent the film and a story, so we needed to land somewhere in between. Somewhere where we'd have songs that were strong enough to stand on their own as pop songs while also being part of telling an overarching story. We also tried our best to make the music feel modern while not leaning into any specific current trends so that we'd have something that would not only age well, but also be more accessible to an international audience." So there you go.
There you go.
Composer talk.
Um, I also just want to mention on like a side note, as someone who did not do any interviewing or whatever, and on a different note with the music, actually, you just shared with me before this the Japanese version of some of the songs.
Correct.
Since we watched the English dub, and they did a good job matching up like how the voices are going to sound.
They really did. So, like, for full disclosure, I did not have access to the English dub when I got the screener version of the film to prep for the interview and everything. I only had the Japanese dub, so obviously I couldn't ask anything about the English dub or like how they tried to match things and all that sort of stuff. But so like when we watched the film together, that was the first time I'd actually seen the English dub in action. And yeah, like you said, they do just an incredible job of making it just sound very similar for both versions. There's really nothing like, I mean, there's probably obviously differences here and there because like you're changing the wording and everything to a different language and all that sort of stuff. But like in terms of just like how it sounds, it's very, very similar in a way that you almost would not expect when going from language to language and different person to different person doing these songs.
It's very, very hard to do because it sounds like the same person just singing in a different language at points, but that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely not what it is. It's
No.
two completely different people, which is
Yeah.
impressive. That's really, really impressive.
Very much so.
Um, which I guess that leads into one thing is that they did do an English dub of all the songs too. I don't know if we
Yes.
mentioned that, but
Which again is like, more work than you would maybe necessarily expect.
mhm.
Because usually it would just be a thing of like, oh, we're just going to keep the songs in Japanese, make it a little bit easier, all that sort of stuff. But they went the full mile here and we're like, no, we're going to do both versions of everything.
And I guess that goes with the whole like they were thinking about like how to make it as accessible as possible to people. Like
Right.
that would be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was just really impressed to hear like how similar they sound. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting.
As you are aware, my brother has more of the like musical part of the McDivitt existence, I guess,
Right.
of the duo of us. Um, but I know more about like vocal stuff than he does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I don't know. I did vocal stuff way more than he did.
Right.
Um, so I tend to like gravitate towards listening to those like first, and so like that was why it stuck out to me when you sent me that just now. I was like, holy crap, like that is good.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Anyway,
But yeah, I guess we can now talk about the film itself.
it's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
With computers.
It's interesting because, like, obviously, we've heard all this talk about things like the metaverse and all that sort of stuff recently. And,
Yeah.
like, a lot of this film kind of takes place in a version of that.
Yep.
But, like, it's obviously something that's more realized than what, is happening in our reality of
Yes.
sorts. But, like, it's essentially just that where you go, it's the classic, technology thing of, like, you go to a different world, you become a different persona, and, you use that to better yourself in real life kind of
Yep.
story. Um,
In this case, you become like a literal Disney princess because she looks just like a Disney princess from like 80s, 90s era.
mhm.
It's crazy. But I mean, like it tracks why because they're like, "Hello, former Disney people. Would you like to design a princess?" And they're like, "Hello, yes, we would like to design a princess. Here is a princess. Thank you.
Yay! We did it.
Yay!"
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, it's also like if you look at it through the lens of like the growth of like VTubers and stuff like that, it's kind of just like another
Yeah.
extension of that sort of thing.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
So like I'd have to imagine like something like that had to have been like a consideration of like, well, this is the thing that's blowing up currently while we're making this film. Like, we can kind of integrate this in a way that makes sense, but it's also its own different thing than what this is happening over here.
Hmm.
But yeah, like, I mean, they basically do mention like or call them like virtual singers, which essentially is a term that's used commonly nowadays.
Right.
So the similarities are certainly there. But yeah, we have our protagonist Suzu, who's just like a kid,
A regular girl.
regular old gal, who's still dealing with the trauma of her mama dying.
She died.
She died, and basically just kind of like alienates herself from everyone except for like a few people, and just is like normal, but also just like very shy and quiet.
Hmm.
Um, Eventually, she gets like an invitation to U, which is like the big metaverse type world where you can basically become anything you want to be, live out this life in this very fancy virtual world, and just do kind of whatever you want. And she creates this avatar and becomes Belle, who, as soon as she gets in, she just starts singing, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, cool." But like she's able to sing like actually, because in her real life, she's unable to do that because like anytime she tries, she basically just gets like super anxiety attacks and panic attacks. Because
I mean, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, to be fair, at one point, like 10,000 microphones are shoved in her face at a karaoke bar, and it's like,
Yeah.
you only need one. You only need one of those microphones, but also
Mm-hmm.
like Jesus Christ. I
Too
would also
many
panic.
microphones.
It's like she's the freaking president or something. Like, Mr. President, please give us some karaoke. Moving on.
But yeah, she's able to like actually sing here because like she doesn't have the pressure of like being herself. She can kind of just do whatever she wants, and then people start latching onto her songs after like one of them goes viral, and she starts getting like a butt ton of followers, and she's like, I don't know what to do with this. Ah.
Side note, because I don't think we mentioned it. She picks Belle, Bell, because that's what Suzu means. Oh God, don't you do what you okay. Okay. So Suzu is Belle, Bell,
Right.
which is where her name came from. Anyway.
And then eventually, like once she starts getting popular, people are just like, what if we just start spelling it Belle?
Mm-hmm.
Because that means beautiful in French.
Beautiful eyes.
Beautiful eyes. So yeah, her name just gets changed, and she's just like, I guess I don't have anything. I can't do anything about this.
All right, guess I'm Belly then.
Belle.
Belly.
Hey.
Hey.
So yeah, she starts getting more popular and popular. She starts doing like concerts in U and everything, and then she's doing this one concert in this like dome, and this dude comes in who's the dragon, and he makes a menace of the concert. Everyone's real mad because they all hate him because he's a dirty fighter.
He just comes in punching people.
Yeah. This vigilante group comes in. They're like, we're going to take you down and expose who you are. And Sue's just like, huh?
They're led by a man named Justin.
Justin. Mental, physical Justin.
What?
That's a VTuber reference.
Oh,
for all my VTuber fans out there.
Nahone.
But yeah, she starts getting like more intrigued, like, okay, who is this guy? Why is he like so villainized in you and everything? Like, what's happening? So her and her friend Hiro try and like find out who this guy is. They learn that like kids like him, but like everyone else just hates him.
Mm-hmm.
And they start finding like these different people who they think could be like this tattoo artist who's tattooing himself with bruises on him. And they're like, well, maybe it's him. But then it's like, nah, he's just a weird artist guy.
Yeah.
I think it's just the lady who lives a fake life online. It's not her. People start thinking it's this baseball player because he doesn't show his skin. And he's like, no, I just have a bunch of scars on my chest because I had a bunch of surgeries when I was a kid. Anyways.
I love that he just like starts ripping off his, not ripping it off, but he just starts taking off his shirt in the middle of this thing like,
I'm jacked.
I am super jacked. Also, I had surgeries as a kid. Let me be an inspirational story to you now. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's a baseball.
Oh, that's a baseball. It was it was wild.
Mm-hmm. Belle eventually goes and finds like the dragon's castle. She tries to talk with him, but he's just like, "Don't go away."
It's a weird, creepy little mermaid guys.
Yeah, the little AIs.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is where we really start getting like the Beauty and the Beast symbolism and parallels and all that sort of stuff here.
Sometimes just like straight up like, this is a scene that looks almost exactly like 1991 Beauty and the Beast.
Yep.
Yep.
For sure.
I love that they even put her in like the riding cape type thing that Belle has in Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Like, that's how she runs around in the castle, is with that cape on initially.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, you guys you're doing it.
Yeah. So like that's they're trying to start getting closer to each other. She's trying to like break down that wall between them and everything. And then also she's dealing with the fact that like her friend Ruka is like, I like someone, can you help me? And she thinks it's the dude that she likes, and she's like real bummed about it. She's like, oh no, oh no.
Because she's a very popular saxophonist.
Yeah, she's the popular girl.
She's pop.
But she's also like she's friends with Suzu, and like Suzu's like, I don't know why you're friends with me.
Yeah, yeah. There's the weird little like angel-y floaty thing that hangs around too.
Yes, he meets Belle like the first time she logs in, and then like he's at the dragon's castle and like helps her around to find him and all that sort of stuff. But this is also where we get the scene of like the girls all getting mad at Suzu because they think she's stealing Shinobu away from them all, and she has to do damage control. Be like, no, it's not true. He's not. We're not dating. No, nothing's happening. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
And this is all because like he asked her if she was okay, like in the hall at school.
Grabbed her hand.
And grabbed her hand.
They're like, oh, scandalous.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
He's also like the most stoic character I think I've seen in a show in a long time.
He plays basketball and just talks very little.
Talks very, very little and very like monotone.
Mm-hmm.
It's very funny to me.
But she finally meets up with Ruka, and she's like, "No, it's not him. What are you talking about? It's not that the guy. What?" And it's the weird like kayak dude that she's friends with. And they're both just gremlins to each other.
Yep.
When they finally confess, which is real good.
It's real good. It's real good. He basically just becomes Shaggy from Scooby-Doo at one point.
Yeah, he keeps trying to like run away, and Suzu has to like keep like dragging him back. Like, no, get back here. What are you doing?
I loved it. Like, and there's one part earlier in the movie where like he jokes with Suzu, like, "Oh man, is that your way of like confessing to me?" And she's like, "No, what are you doing?" This
is because he's like, "Oh, I'll go. I'm cheering for you because you made it to nationals. That's cool." He's like, "Oh, does that mean you like me?" And he's like, just stares at me. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna take that silence as no."
Yeah, that's a no. But then he's like, "Oh, I was just kidding. I was kidding."
Yeah, and then he pulls the same thing with Ruka, and then she just like gets all like shy and embarrassed and
covers her face.
And he's like, "Wait, is that true?" And Sue's just like in front of Ruka, just like nodding her head. And he's just like, "I don't know what to do."
All while wearing Crocs. This man got confessed to wearing Crocs.
What a man!
What a man! He's a gremlin.
Eventually, she's able to pull him back in there, and they're like able to talk a little bit. She's like, "I'll come watch you." And they're like, "What do you like?" You're like, "I like Belle." And like, "Oh, I do too." And then she's like, "Uh-oh, I gotta go." And that's where like Shinobu finds her, and he's like, "Hey, I got something to ask you." And she's like, "Oh, I got something to ask you too." And he's like, "You're Belle, aren't you?" And she's like, "What? No. And then is able to run away when there's like a rush of traffic on the street.
Rush of traffic all
and
of a sudden.
He's like, "Huh? Wait, where'd you go?"
Also, they never really clarify how he found out that she was Belle. Other than the fact that like he's known her since she was 6.
He probably knows the singing voice.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. And like the way she sings, so like that's how he probably would be able to understand and know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like it was unclear when her mom died, but the singing would obviously sound different as she's like 17 and not 6. But my guess is that he's just close enough to her that he was able to like piece it together, and he does know her voice,
right? So he would have a better understanding than anyone essentially that didn't know. But things in You go kind of haywire when the vigilante squad basically are out to find the dragon's castle and everything. Then they do like the recreation of the Beauty and the Beast scene, like the dance scene and all that sort of stuff, where she sings the song for him. Yep. All that sort of stuff. She gets captured.
Yo, hold on. Back it up. We gotta talk about those weird shoes.
Beep, beep. Talk about the shoes, please.
They're horrifying. Those are the most terrifying shoes I think I've ever seen in my entire life, because he's got like, beastie legs, but like the shoes are formed up on the beastie leg. I'm like, oh God, no, 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 no. Just let him go barefoot. This is creepy. This is terrifying. Why are you
Mhm.
doing this? And like the whole time they were doing the whole dancing scene, I was like, this is supposed to be pretty, but those shoes,
What are
what are
those?
those? Like it's so upsetting. But they do get little nice roses. So that's fun.
Yeah.
Um, also just something that I feel like should be mentioned. Like, of course, a man named Justin is a villain. Like, that just seems completely yes. Have you ever met a good Justin?
Yes.
What? I okay. Okay. I guess I should refrain from saying anything because I'm related to a Justin. But most Justins are terrible. And it just seems like I'm a basic white guy. Let's go. Woo. Which I guess like he's voiced by Chance Crawford or Chase Crawford, so I guess he is kind of a basic white guy. But anyway, continue on.
But yeah, eventually Justin captures Belle and like it tries to interrogate her. Like, are you? I know you're close to the dragon. Where is he? What is he doing? She's like, I'm not telling you anything. And he's even like, I'll show your identity to the world if you don't tell me anything. And he's like trying to do that. Then the AIs come in and are like, hey, blah, 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 and Ariel would make her escape, but she drops like a petal of the flower, which allows them to find the castle and everything. And
That's
they burn
code.
it to the ground,
They burn it to the ground.
which is very rude and mean.
There was a big like octopus squid thingy hanging on the castle. It's like, well, that's cooked now.
It's gonna be burnt to a crisp.
Yeah, a little bit. They overcooked it. That's kind of sad.
She tries to find the dragon again and like help him out, but he's like, I'm out of here. See you later. And flees, and then they basically have to try and find his identity again before he gets caught and unveiled. They find a video feed of this kid singing a song, which is the song that Belle sang for the dragon, which is like the only two would know that. So she's like, how does this kid know that? And then she realizes that this kid is like the little angel avatar.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually like his brother shows up and she's like, okay, this is the dragon then. But they also like find out like they're being abused by their dad.
Which is what I figured when the bruises were a whole thing. I was like, oh yeah, so somebody getting beaten on. I was going to ask you something. What was I going to ask you?
What were you going to ask me?
I don't know. In one ear, out the other. Gone forever.
Butts indeed. But yeah, they find them and they basically kind of understand that that's probably who it is. They try and like video connect with them and like she tries to tell them who she is, but like they're like, no, I don't. Kay, the kid who's the dragon, basically is like, I don't believe you're this person. I don't have any reason to trust you. I've heard this song and dance time and time and time and time and time and time again. Like, why should I care? Why should I believe what you're telling me? And then disconnects from them, and then she goes into like you after everyone else is just like, hey, you need to go sing. You need to find a way to help them. You need to do this. And like all like, yeah, we kind of know who you are as well, by the way. BT dubs. She goes into you. She's gonna sing, and then she also unveils herself because she like grabs Justin's thing. He's like, you're gonna unveil me. Do it. And he's like, what? No, I'm not gonna do this. What? No, 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 no. And then she shows who she really is, starts singing, and basically enraptures the entire world of you, and is able to show like, hey, this is who I actually am. You can trust me and everything. Poor Justin loses all his sponsors.
Rip.
The smug whale comes back.
The smug whale! My favorite. I love the smug whale. Peggy Sue is like, oh man, you're a regular girl just like me. I'm going to cheer for you now instead of being a butthead to you.
Yay.
Yay.
So they're able to do all that, and then they contact the kids again, and Kay's like about to tell them like where they live and everything, but then the dad finds like the video of getting him abusing the kids and like runs in and just rips the internet out before the address can be told. And then they basically find out like, or use like sound cues and just like a still frame from the windowsill, or like, okay, these songs are playing like your little like chimes that play in Japanese towns. All right, this is we've kind of like narrowed down the search to this, And then Comet Machine's like, oh, I was there just recently. I know exactly where this is. I know those buildings.
Look at this picture.
Look at
Look at this photograph.
Look at this photograph. And they're like, okay, well, now we have a neighborhood down. So, like, one of the old ladies or the middle-aged ladies is trying to call the cops and be like, hey, can you do a welfare check on these people? And the cops are like, nope, can't. 48 hours. You need that much time for us to do this. And they're like, what do you mean 48 hours? Do your job.
That seems like a terrible policy, by the way.
Oh, 100%. But
like, people could die in 48 hours.
The cops are doing nothing. Shocker.
The cops are doing what cops do.
So Suzu's like, I'm out of here. So, like, they just put her on a train and in a bus and send her to Tokyo to find these kids.
Which I mentioned to you when we were watching. It's like, this seems like a terrible idea to send a teenage girl by herself into a situation where they know that active abuse is happening.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Like, this is a bad plan.
Mm-hmm. But on the way, she's able to, like, actually reconnect with her dad and everything. Because, like, her and her dad have had this, like, real rocky relationship where she just does not want to open up to him or anything. Just doesn't really want anything to do with him. Not like it's a bad way. It's just like she just isn't really emotionally ready to deal with any of this and hasn't been for years since her mom died. And her dad just like keeps trying and trying and trying. Just like, I think himself just understands like eventually she'll open up and I'll be ready to do that and everything. And she finally kind of does that and like talks to him about everything and is like, I got to go find and help some people. And then I'll be back. And he's like, all right, I know you're going to do great. You've always been kind and everything. You've grown up to be this kind girl. Like, you're going to do great, and I believe in you and all that sort of stuff. Which was, like, real sweet, because they haven't really had, like, really any kind of, like, heart-to-heart talk, probably since, like, her mom died or anything like that.
Yeah.
But she eventually shows up there and is, like, running around in the rain to all these neighborhoods, and then she finds the little kid. And is like, hey, it's Belle. Hello, you're here. And then Kay shows up and is like, oh, you actually came. Interesting. And then the dad runs up and is like, where are you kids going? Who's this person? Get away from my children. You can't tell me how to raise my children. And then, like, rips part of her cheek open.
Yep.
Just grim and gruesome.
Yeah, like, the way that he pulls on her face is like, oh, God.
She basically, like, puts herself in front of the kids to protect them for, like, he's trying to, like, hit her, but, like, she's just standing in front of him, like, stone-faced with blood running down her cheek. It's like, I'm not gonna move. Hit me if you want. And he basically just backs down because like this dad's basically now in a position where like the power dynamic shifted where he doesn't have the power anymore, so now he's basically a wimp.
Yeah. Yep.
You sound very agreeable in that sentence. I mean, it's obviously not gonna like super change things. Like, obviously, I think they would have to get those kids out of that situation like immediately.
Oh yeah. Like, that's not going to stop child abuse. And as soon as she's gone, that's probably going to be right. So.
But I think in this situation, it was like, you know, the dad definitely has had this power dynamic over the kids and feels like he can just do whatever. And like once someone actually comes in and is like, no, you're not doing this, like it completely upsets his balance and makes him so like he can't do anything.
Literally falls on his butt.
Falls on his butt.
Yeah, she just bleeds.
Real metal.
Yeah, it's pretty metal.
Suzu and Kay thank each other for giving each other courage, and then she goes back home, and her dad's there to welcome her home. And
that's cute.
Yeah. She finally wants to have dinner with him, which is real nice.
Yay.
And then they all like her friends and everyone walk on the beach together. And Shinobu's like, hey, I don't have to protect you anymore. We can actually have, like, a normal relationship. It's cool.
Okay, so this bothered me.
So I think, like, to me, I understood this as, like, he wasn't just like, oh, well, now I don't have to protect you. Whatever. I can live my life happily. I think for him, like, he always was trying to look out for her after her mom died and everything. Like, he was trying to do that to make sure she was okay. But by doing so, it caused, like, this rift in their relationship, in their friendship and everything. Where like he basically had to be the protector the entire time, and she was just in this rut this whole time where she couldn't get out of it. So like they couldn't move forward with their relationship at all or their friendship or anything. So like they were just stuck in this way for years. And then now that she's able to kind of like get out of her shell and she's able to like have some confidence back in herself, she's able to come to terms with her mother's death and everything. He doesn't have to feel like he has to, protect her at all times. They can, push forward through their relationship. They can break these walls down that have been kind of between them now and have something that's a little bit more normal or normalized, essentially. Does that make sense?
I mean, that's a much more generous way of interpreting it than what I was giving him, because
Right.
I was very, very mad about this line. Like, yo, my dude.
Yeah, it was just. I think for me, I just never saw it as like something that was like, well, now I don't have to have anything to do with you anymore, type of thing.
It was more treating her like a burden that bothered
Right? Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
That bothered me a lot.
Yeah, I understand that. But I don't think that's necessarily what they were going for.
Yeah, like I don't think he's gonna abandon her after
Right.
this, but like just the way he said it, I was like, wow, okay, like glad she was an obligation to you and not like somebody you actually genuinely gave a about. Good job, buddy.
Like, it's probably more the fact that like, oh, now that we don't have this kind of relationship, we can actually have like a different kind of relationship, like dating kind of relationship sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just a weird way to put it. I think there's also like just some weird things in the English dub as particular.
Mm.
Like, you mentioned the friend, how like you thought she was just terrible the entire time, and like the first couple of times I watched this, I didn't really get that vibe from her. Like, obviously she was weird and like kind of, trying to push Belle in this very specific way, but like in the English dub, she's a lot more just like, I don't know, what's the word for it? Like,
She's mean.
yeah, I guess that would be the way to describe it. Like, there definitely is like a different kind of vibe with that character in the English dub, I think.
Like she says some things that are like genuinely mean, that's like to her real good friend. I'm like, whoa, are you sure you guys are friends? Yikes.
Because like I think in the Japanese dub, at least, it felt like it was more tongue in cheek, whereas this, it's more just like biting.
Yeah.
So that was a thing.
A thing. A thing.
But yeah, that's how the movie ends, essentially.
Yeah. I still don't remember what I was going to ask you earlier, but
One day you'll remember and you'll be like, oh no, I remembered.
Yeah, I'll probably remember like, I don't know, 10 years from now. I'll be like, hey, Jared, I was going to tell you about this Belle thing. You're like, what the heck are you even talking about?
Who are you?
What? Are you saying we're not going to be friends?
No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
I joke.
It's joke.
It's a joke.
It's joke. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
It's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. Essentially.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Good job. You remembered.
Is it 10 years from now?
Yes. Hello. Welcome to 2032.
Oh my God. That's horrifying. Well, now this is gonna come across as like something stupid because we've gone through the whole movie and
It's fine. It's fine.
I was just thinking of the like weird thing where she like shoves his like weird dragon beast nose into her boobs. I was like, why is this happening?
Look, he's a big boy and he's awkward to hug.
It's true. And then like when you think about it, he's like a kid.
Yeah.
You're like, oh well, I guess.
And then when they hug in real life, he's like, oh hey, this is actually you.
Yeah, yeah. It's also cute that he's shorter than her.
And his brother's like, hello, I would also like hug.
Hug? Hug?
Hug a Shio?
Yep. So anyway, sorry that, like I said, it was totally stupid, but
no, it's fine.
It was something that I brought up when we were watching it, and I remembered that I wanted to bring that up again.
Right.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
Boob hug.
Boob hug. That's a good way to end a podcast, right?
Oh man.
What are we?
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. But yeah, that's Belle. It's fun.
Uh-huh.
And it's like the third or fourth time I've watched it now and still enjoyed it, so
That's good.
yeah. It was interesting watching this again after having done all the work for it. I was like picking up like, okay, this is where this song is. This is this song. I remember having to think about this song, thinking about how this relates to the film and everything. It was a very interesting kind of watch going back to it again.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah. Did you know the novelist who wrote Beauty and the Beach had a husband who was a spy?
Beauty and the Beach.
Beauty and the Beach.
A spy?
I'll be like Mario and you could be Princess Beach.
Oh, why would you do that? Why?
Yeah. Her third husband was the French spy Thomas Pichon.
What?
That's pretty cool. Her name is also very long.
What was he a spy for?
France.
Well, I assumed that, yes.
Let's see. Hang on. He was also known as Thomas Tyrrell. He was a French
Tyrrell.
government agent during Father Leleutre's war. He's renowned for betraying the French,
Oh no.
providing information to the British, which led to the fall of Beaujeu. He is also referred to as the Judas of Acadia.
Okay. I see Nahone.
He moved to London in 1757 and had an affair with the lady who wrote Beauty and the Beast.
Wowza.
This man's wild.
I feel like we need to look into this guy.
There you go. Spies. No spies in this film, though. Not really. But that's going to do it for this episode. So if you'd like more from us, head on over to seasonalanimecheckup.com or sac.cool where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Jared and Now Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Ann Ladium, go to annladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Anime Checkup. You can buy our books, One Shiny Moment, a critical analysis of Love, Life, Sunshine, and Hot Tubs and Pac-Man on Amazon.com. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza, get access to unedited versions of the podcast early, and a wealth of bonus content as well. Next week, we aren't talking about an anime version of a fairy tale because the video games are back.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot about a lot of the video game presentations that are happening around the not E3 week or month. I don't know how you describe it. Also, did you hear that next year E3's back?
Why?
I don't know.
You're literally the only person clapping.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, we'll talk about the Sony State of Play that happened last week, the Summer Games Fest thing, Xbox's thing, Capcom's thing, and then probably someone else and a couple other people are going to have some things. We'll talk about those. And hopefully we don't miss any because I will be real upset if we do.
Yeah, same.
So we'll talk about all of that next week.
Mm-hmm.